Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Before we get started, just wanted to remind everybody to support us if you have a chance or if you can. Even $1 helps, and we have a link in the description to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way to donate to us and support us. Again, any amount is helpful so that we can keep putting out content. And there's also other ways for you to support us in the show notes to this podcast or on YouTube in the description. In today's podcast, I wanted to discuss a couple of news stories. First up, wanted to discuss some news about the global minimum tax rate that's being proposed. If you read the news, it makes it seem like it's already passed, but it's a number of countries in the G7 that are going to try to impose a minimum tax of 15%. And this was being pushed by Janet Yellen in the United States. And at a meeting of the G7, they decided to come up with this. But it's not every country in the world. It's just the 7 countries. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they effectuate this. And it's going to take a lot of time, because how do they have jurisdiction over every company on the globe? They don't. So it's not really a global minimum tax, but they're going to try to implement this because the wealthiest companies in the world operate in the G7. And so they're going to target the largest companies, including, specifically they want to target the largest tech companies like Facebook and Google that take advantage of intellectual property loopholes. Or I don't know if you'd call it a loophole, because I don't think governments are entitled to profits of a company. I agree that companies should pay taxes for the common good, but I don't think that means that the government's automatically entitled to a certain percentage of income. But as it relates to the big 4 accounting firms, this is really big news. And if you listen to this podcast at all, we talk, especially in this past year with COVID-19 and the increasing role of government in public health and other areas of life. We were talking about how governments were spending more money and gaining more power, and they decided to use this to try and implement this global minimum tax now. And this is just a common theme that we've been seeing, and this is the area that the big 4 accounting firms operate in. They operate in government regulation. Everything you do at the big 4 accounting firms is around government regulation. That's why you have so much administrative tasks to do in the big 4 accounting firms, from your timesheet to onboarding clients, to the fact that clients have to file financial reports at all. This is all due to government regulation. And even though I think this global minimum tax is a long ways away, and I think it'll probably be watered down by the time it comes into effect, it's going to mean a lot of fees for the big 4 accounting firms. They're going to be advising clients on this. In the United States, we have a new president, and he has his tax plan that he was trying to get through. And on top of that, you have this global tax rate. So there's just tons of work to be done. A lot of clients will hire the big 4 accounting firms to advise them on this. Some of them will hold off. Some of them are sophisticated enough to deal with this on their own. But some people are going to have to restructure their tax departments, because if you historically had a tax department that's focused jurisdiction by jurisdiction, then you're going to have a really good global specialist to really have a handle on things. And people already had global tax directors, but it's going to have to be even more extensive than that. And my view also is you're going to see smaller jurisdictions tax more as well, because that's kind of the signal being sent here that everybody can just go grab profits. So it's not even going to just be countries, it's going to be municipalities and smaller jurisdictions that are going to be trying to get more tax too. So that's just a lot of work for the big 4 accounting firms to do and win. But I think that's interesting. The whole tax landscape right now is going through a huge change, because with more government spend, they need to try and cover their expenses, even though that seems to matter less and less. It seems they just spend no matter what they collect. But they're still going to need to collect more. So they're going to try to collect as many dollars as they can, and the big 4 accounting firms are going to be there fighting them along the way. And I think that could also mean increased regulation of the big four accounting firms because I think governments will blame the big four accounting firms for tax avoidance. So there's a lot of implications for the big four accounting firms from this. And then another news story I wanted to cover was news about KPMG. KPMG unveiled a free tool that they have where people can look up diversity metrics for corporate boards. And they said that previously you could go to various proxies of public companies and see their some of their diversity stats, but not all companies disclose that information. And so KPMG is offering something. And basically what it seems like is they're trying to expose which firms disclose diversity metrics and which firms don't, and the nature of the diversity of each of these companies. And it seems similar to ESG, where they're trying to raise awareness. They're trying to increase disclosure just so they can win work, not only on the consulting side, but also on the audit of these disclosures. I think it's hilarious for KPMG to be doing this. I think they're not very diverse in the United States, globally, or in the UK, as we've seen there. And yet they're trying to call companies out. I think that's pretty funny. And wouldn't be surprised if it blows back in their face. But I'm not sure who's going to use this tool. Maybe some investors, maybe the media. I think it's more of a tool for the media in some articles down the road, but we'll see with that. But those are the news stories I wanted to cover today. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast to stay up to date. Support us financially through the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes if you can. And if you can't, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Big Four Accounting Firms. Thanks for listening.